Welcome to Water Gardens 101. Today's webinar will be focusing on those small backyard pond water garden kind of type features. So we're just gonna get started here pretty shortly, but if first off, some housekeeping things. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat in there. I'm joined today with Lynn, the CEO and founder of the organization, and she will answer any questions that you have as I present. And then at the end of the presentation, we will be sticking around and answering any more additional questions. But yeah, so today we're going to be covering water gardens. We'll be going through the different types of water gardens options out there, which is really handy if you don't have a water garden or you're looking to and build one. Then it gives you some different ideas of the pros and cons of each different what we consider the types of water gardens. As well as then we'll go into the common issues. There's a whole array of common issues that are kind of faced with each water garden, but we do have the solutions for that, which is what we will be ending the presentation on is talking about the different things that you can do to eradicate and maintain a lot of those solutions and that kind of thing. So a little bit about us. So my name is Eric Melvin. I'm the VP of Operations at Clean Water Pro, as well as CWP Environmental and Vantage Drones. We are a water remediation company that's been around since 2016, where we help homeowners all the way up to government organizations, fisheries, that sort of things in lakes and rivers, that sort of things. But we do have a division where we focus on small backyard ponds and kind of the maintaining, and that's kind of where the company actually got its start. Way back in 2008, we started as a landscaping company where we were supplying landscape lighting as well as pond building supplies, skimmers, liners, that sort of thing, and teaching people how to build backyard ponds. And then over time, we just kind of evolved into a water remediation company from there with maintaining these backyard ponds and then now and on a commercial level. So we do maintenance across Manitoba, as well as we have clients coast to coast, which we're consulting on their water body issues. So we have a lot of hands-on experience and trial and error, which allows us to consult and give the best solutions that we know personally work because we're actually employing it ourselves in our own ponds that we maintain. So different types of water gardens. There's a whole different array that you kind of go for. You can go for that natural look, or you can go for a more contemporary look that's modern and sleek. But kind of different ideas that might want to fit into the landscape. So we'll be talking about each of them. So the first one is pondless. So pondless is kind of like a stream that disappears into nothing, gets pumped back up, and then goes back down the stream kind of thing. So there's not a like a visible basin for the water to be sitting in. Some of the pros, they're aesthetically pleasing. A lot of people like them. The aquatic garden, there are still those aquatic gardening opportunities to add those aquatic plants. So water loving aquatic plants thrive in the slow moving areas of the stream. So you're not going to be putting it right where the waterfall is coming down, but you can create small pools where you can add plants and different things to the stream. As well as safety. If you have safety concerns with having a pond that's 2, 3, 6 feet deep kind of thing in your backyard, and you have small children or pets and things like that, they pose a drowning hazard. Not to say that a stream doesn't have that same hazard, but it's less likely to occur with a pondless kind of stream. Some of the cons: pondless streams do not provide habitat for fish compared to traditional ponds. So I'm a big fish guy. I like having koi in my backyard pond. So by not having that opportunity, that makes me a little bit sad, but that's to each their own. If you don't want to have koi or goldfish in your pond, then that's totally fine. And this might be the perfect kind of water feature to fit in your landscape. Pondless streams are prone to string algae, so they still do have water quality and maintenance issues that we do have solutions for, but especially the fast moving water systems, they do get string algae, which is kind of tough to take care of. So that is one of the potential cons with it. And the design and layouts might be limited to your space and terrain. It's and this kind of goes for all of these different water gardens that we're going to be talking about is if you want to have a large stream and a pond, it might not fit in your landscape, so you might have to scale down and kind of do more of a bubbling rock or small, very, very small water feature just to kind of have that opportunity. But generally it's a bit tougher with these pondless systems. Then we have ponds with a waterfall, so it's basically the same except it goes into a basin at the bottom that can be various in size. So ponds and waterfall, they provide habitat for aquatic plants, wildlife, promoting biodiversity, ecosystems. So in these systems, you can 100% stock them with koi and goldfish, that sort of thing. They're again waters features. They provide the soothing sound of flowing water, which has a calming effect for the outdoor environment and is great for mental health, that sort of thing. It provides water circulation to the water system. So that pond, that basin that's at the bottom of your stream there, you want to have circulation that prevents a lot of water quality issues. So by having this circulation for the water system is important. The initial installation costs can be substantial though. You're looking at more material, more space. So that basically just adds a lot of different costs and things like that to the actual system. There are safety concerns that you might have with the pond, because now you all of a sudden don't have a couple inches of water, you have a couple feet of water or more. So young children and pets, they can kind of be a bit of a concern with there. So you might need fencing and other sort of different precautions necessary for having that backyard pond compared to another water feature. And as well as some bylaws may restrict the depth and size of the pond too. So once you kind of get into this, it depends on your local municipality. So it's important to check those bylaws, but you might be a little bit more restricted in constructing one of these systems. So then ponds without a waterfall. So totally okay to do without a waterfall. They provide habitat again, so you can be stocking them with fish, supporting biodiversity. They can also offer recreational activities such as fish stocking and swimming. Usually due to if you have a certain area that you can put a water feature in, and let's say it's 30 feet long, and that includes a stream and a pond. But if you don't want to go with that stream, then all of a sudden you have that 30-foot area, 30 feet by, I don't know, 20 feet or something. You can build a very substantial large pond that could be turned into a swim pond kind of situation. And if that's kind of a size restriction. If you don't have a size restriction, then you could do that big pond with a big stream and everyone's happy, but kind of just making sure that you can fit it within the landscape. Some of the cons to be aware of is ponds without streams may be more susceptible to algae growth due to stagnant water conditions. So non-moving water, you don't have that circulation. You're looking at other remedies to provide that circulation in this kind of pond. Still water in ponds can attract mosquitoes and other pests. Stagnant water is where mosquitoes that like to bite and things are, that's where they breed. That's why they say if you have any sort of standing water in your yard, in like an old tire, bird bath, puddles, that sort of thing, to make sure you're draining that, because that's where mosquitoes are going to breed, and then those mosquitoes will bite you. There are actually, fun fact, mosquitoes that will breed in moving water, but those ones aren't the ones that bite you. So just something to keep in mind, that having that water circulation will prevent having mosquitoes and things in your yard. As well as without a screen to incorporate a skimmer and filter, ponds may experience water quality challenges. So especially in smaller water bodies, there are additional challenges to keep the water clean and clear. So without there's a definite need for remedies for that. So but having a skimmer and a filter that are combating some of these issues for you, they definitely go a long way. Then we have bubbling rocks, simplistic water features. So these are great. They offer sound and movement to the water great at a greatly reduced cost. So this can be very, very small, and it fits nicely in the landscape. They'll still attract your birds, butterflies, other sort of wildlife to the yard if that's something that is a main goal for you. And they can fit in almost any landscape. So, like we were saying before, if size is a restriction and you want something, you can still have something very small and get all that same benefit and movement. And it's not going to break the bank, but it will fit nicely in a small backyard kind of thing. Some of the cons, it's still susceptible to algae and scum can accumulate if the feature is not maintained. So still need to be providing remedies for that. As well as water source tends to be depleted a little bit quicker than some of these other water features, just because the reservoir is not going to be as big. So you might have to refill it throughout the summer months, which can have an effect on your water bill. Then we have fish ponds. So fish such as koi and goldfish, they help control insects populations by consuming mosquito larvae and that sort of thing. They can graze on algae, which helps control algae growth of certain species, not all species, but they do have a role to play. And then they just bring enjoyment to owning and maintaining the pond. A lot of people like their koi fish. I know I do. They almost like little dogs. Sometimes you can teach them to come up to you and eat out of your hand and all different kinds of things. Some of the cons: fish will attract predators such as birds, raccoons, other wildlife, which has an overall increase on the pond. So either deterrent systems, or if you do lose a large koi fish, they are very expensive. So that definitely does hurt. So then you're starting at square one and buying a smaller koi fish, or looking at replacing that kind of fish with a large fish. Like 8 to 10 inches are like $1,000 sometimes. So they're very expensive. Whereas if you get the ones from the fish store, they're more like $13 to $25. So still expensive, but definitely something to keep in mind, that you want to be protecting the fish as much as you can. Fish waste and uneaten food, they'll also contribute to nutrient buildup and water pollution in the pond as well. So that's leading to additional factors. So if you have too many fish and you're feeding them, they're going to produce waste, which then produces nutrients for algae to grow. So that all kind of plays a big role here. Without proper management, fish populations can become overpopulated, leading to water quality challenges as well. We've talked to many clients before where they kind of let their fish populations run rampant, and they have a small 300-gallon pond that has like 70 fish in there, and it's just green, and they're struggling to maintain it. And one of the main things that's like, your cost to maintain that with additives are going to increase, because you just need to put more and more in, or the easiest solution would be to remove some fish, find new homes for them, kind of thing. If you pop them up on Kijiji, you can normally find homes, or you can donate them to pet stores, and then they'll find good homes that way. As well as ponds with fish require regular maintenance, including feeding, water quality monitoring. So it's much more important to monitor your water and do regular testing when you have fish, as compared to if you're just maintaining water. You don't really have to take tests unless there's an issue. As well as disease prevention to ensure the health and well-being of the fish. And then finally, we have swim ponds. Swim ponds serve as a natural alternative to in-ground pools. they're much less maintenance and cost effective. They're not going to they cost significantly less to build and maintain compared to an in-ground pool. They can offer larger scale recreational activities. They don't need harmful chemicals to maintain. They can increase the value of the property with little upfront investment. And unlike pools, swim ponds do not need costly relining filtration systems, and they will last the test of time, kind of thing. So this is a huge trend that we've seen since the pandemic there, that a lot of people are starting to build and or convert their backyard ponds into swim ponds. And you don't have to be of a significant size. I know it would be great to have like a quarter acre kind of swim pond, but you can do a small swim pond that's only like 1,000 square feet, about or even less than that, kind of thing. So definitely, if it fits within the landscape and you're able to come up with something small that you think yourselves or your kids would enjoy, absolutely feel free to talk to us about how we can set you up with maintaining a swim pond and the ins and outs of that. Some of the cons, though, is they are susceptible to evaporation and water loss, especially during hot and dry conditions. That's mostly if you're not lining it with rubber liner as well. Also, stagnant water in swimming ponds can promote algae growth, resulting in water quality issues. So again, it's not free of maintenance. We do have to maintain the water, especially if you're swimming. There's safety concerns with that. And they do have unique challenges compared to pools, such as dredging, debris removal. So accumulation of muck and things like that. You want to make sure that's in check, because it's not enjoyable to swim in, and it can also lead to aquatic weeds and things like that, which pose a bit of a safety hazard, as well as shoreline stabilization. So if you're entering in and out of the pond or your swim pond there, making sure that you have the shore is very stable, because that constant in and out will eventually kind of wear down that shoreline. So now we'll talk about the common issues. So first off, murky water. So murky water refers to water that appears cloudy and turbid due to suspended particles, algae, organic matter. It reduces clarity as well as visibility. Usually it's due to sediment runoff, as well as excessive nutrient inputs, organic matter that's decomposing, algae blooms, that sort of thing. The main effects that we have concerns with is it reduces light penetration, inhibits plant growth, impairs water quality. So it's usually a sign that there is something wrong with the water. So and it leads to habitat degradation and reduced biodiversity. So it's usually just a side effect of there's something wrong, there's something causing the murky water. So as well as it's just unsightly, but there's normally there's a reason for it, and we kind of want to make sure that we're keeping it in check. Then we have tannins. So tannins are organic compounds found in decaying plant material, giving the pond a brownish color, creating a tea-like appearance. So unlike murky water, it's pretty easy to tell if there's tannins. It's normally just a stained water look, but the main causes are from woody debris, leaves, that sort of thing. You see them often in boreal shield type lakes, where there's surrounded by forest or wetlands and that sort of thing, and all that organic matter is just sitting in the water and just leaching, almost dyeing the water in a sense there. Why it matters is it can affect the pH levels, again, reduce light penetration, affect aquatic plant growth, and it can have a negative impact on fish health and water quality parameters as well. And then we have sediments. So sediments refers to the particles of soil, organic matter, debris that settle at the bottom of ponds over time. So this is not like murky water, but actual more or the inorganic kind of side of things. Main cause is erosion, so organic matter decomposition, excessive aquatic plant growth, and lack of maintenance. So the main I guess, concern with sediments or sedimentation in a pond is it reduces your water depth. It also brings with it nutrients. Nutrients are what feed algae and other sort of related issues with that, which leads to a water quality degradation and habitat loss. Then we have odor. So pond water odor refers to as the unpleasant smells emanating from water bodies, often caused by the presence of decomposing organic matter and anaerobic bacteria. So again, this is an indication that there's the pond isn't well balanced and that there's something causing this odor. So looking for a solution to fix it. Um, so the main cause is from decaying organic matter, as well as if you have too many nutrients inputs leading to algae blooms, those often lead to strong odors, as well as anaerobic conditions, meaning that there's low oxygen, it's poor circulated, and it's just stand still and releasing gases, which smell like sulfur and kind of fish, have that fishy smell associated with it. Odor in pond water can deter from recreational activities. They are also another indicator of poor water quality. They can have a disruption in that natural ecosystem, that balancing effect. So definitely something to keep in mind. It's mostly an indication and it is caused by one of these other causes. But if we get a call and it says the pond stinks, then we know that there's a couple things going on along with that. So muck in pond refers to the accumulation of decomposing organic matter, sediments, and debris at the bottom of the pond, creating a dark and sludgy layer. The main cause is from that decomposition. So essentially, as things break down, it turns into a very nutrient-rich organic matter. If you've ever gone into like a beach and you're walking out sometimes like up to your waist or whatnot, and you step on the beach and all of a sudden it goes from sand into an ooze between your toes. That's what muck is. You pick it up, it's dark black and stuff, and it'd be fantastic to put on your garden because it's going to fertilize everything, but also it ends up fertilizing aquatic weeds and algae and leading to other issues, along with reducing your water depth as well. So if you dig or build a pond and you don't leave it at, or if you don't maintain that 3 or 4 foot water garden you might build will reduce over time, and then it's very costly to kind of bring that back, and it's leading to other issues as the muck breaks down. It's releasing nutrients that causes algae growth, as well as it's the main cause where aquatic weeds are going to grow. So if you're not wanting like weeds where they're not wanted, it can be a bit of a concern, as well as there is a safety concern with muck as well. If you're swimming, that's why they say don't swim in retention ponds, because sometimes they have 2 or 3 feet of muck. It can suck you in and you won't be able to get back out. There have been many cases of, well, I shouldn't say many, but there have been cases of even in Winnipeg a couple of years ago, there was a gentleman that went to rescue his dog. He went in, he got tangled up in the weeds and the muck in the pond and ended up drowning. That's how kind of a large concern too much muck can be in a water system. Then we have aquatic weeds. Basically, they're the unwanted plant species. A lot of water gardens, we want to be introducing different plant species to the water garden, but the aquatic weeds are the species we don't want. So like sago pondweed, that sort of thing, where they just take over and affect the aesthetics and other sort of enjoyment of the pond. They thrive because of the nutrient enrichment. So if you have a lot of muck in the pond, then you typically have a lot of aquatic weeds. So reducing muck is typically how we reduce our aquatic weeds, aside from just more of a manual side of things. But it basically is getting rid of that source cause for the weeds is by targeting where the substrate, the medium that they're growing in. And also they can lead to reduced oxygen levels, because they're going to be impairing water circulation, and just like plants on land, as we photosynthesize, they release oxygen, but at night they suck oxygen back in. So you're having that unbalance of dissolved oxygen. So if you're trying to support fish or other sort of aquatic life in your pond, it's creating stagnant conditions. They can also obstruct water flow. So if you do have a stream, that sort of thing, as well as they provide breeding grounds for mosquitoes and other pests as well. Then we have duckweed. So duckweed is an aquatic weed, but it's kind of in its own category. We get a lot of calls about duckweed thinking that it's algae, but it ends up being duckweed, and so we like to make sure that if we get a call about a certain issue, that we know exactly what that issue is. So we typically ask them a bunch of questions just to kind of break it down. We look for pictures and evidence and make sure that the issue that you have is what it is, kind of thing. But so if you do have duckweed, it's going to be looking like small aquatic free floating plants. And they're often found in slow moving water bodies. So if you don't have water circulation, you don't have aeration, then you typically can get duckweed. They are characterized by their small rounded leaves as well as rapid growth rate. We've had many people call us and say, I spent 8 hours removing the duckweed from my pond. It was looking great. I went back the next day and it's like I didn't do a single thing. That's how fast duckweed can reproduce. So it's definitely a concern that a lot of people have, because it kind of affects that general aesthetic of the pond. Also is an indication that there are high nutrients and slow moving water. But the main cause of duckweed is it's actually brought on the backs of waterfowl such as ducks. So they land in a pond that has duckweed, leave that pond, and attached to their feathers are the plant material. They go to the next pond, and then that releases into the pond, and now you have duckweed, kind of thing. As well as overland flooding. A number of years ago in Manitoba, there was a lot of overland flooding in late May and early June, and ponds that we personally treat and maintain ourselves all of a sudden had duckweed. So it's usually attributed to the overland flooding as well. So there are solutions for it, which we will be talking about in a little bit, but definitely something to keep in mind, that if you do have an issue, it helps narrow it down so we can better assist you with that. And then we have algae. So there are 4 kind of main categories of algae, but there's thousands of species of algae. So we were able to tackle and approach each algae, but it's important to subcategorize them so that we know exactly what we're dealing with, because the approach that we would take to maintain balance and reduce algae will vary, kind of thing. So yeah. Anyway, so with surface algae are types of algae that grow and accumulate on the surface of bodies of water, such as ponds, lakes, and reservoirs. They produce dense mats or scums on the water surface, often appearing as greenish brown, reddish color layers. So they can come in a variety of different colors. This particular picture here is called elephant snot. It sounds exactly, or it looks exactly like it sounds. It's basically as if an elephant lets their snot all over the pond, kind of thing. So why it matters is it leads to, again, oxygen depletion. It's an indication that there's high nutrients, affects biodiversity, and it creates unpleasant odors and overall the aesthetic values of the pond as well. So people don't like looking at it and the associated kind of like odors and things that come with this type of algae. So they're looking to reduce that algae so that they can enjoy their water garden. Then we have suspended algae. So these are known as phytoplankton or microscopic algae that's suspended in water bodies. So that's within the water column. It's not at the surface. It basically looks like pea soup, or it turns the water green. So excess growth can lead to reduced water clarity, oxygen depletion, altering the pH, that kind of thing. So it's you might be seeing a pattern here that there's murky water and stuff. Well, it might be suspended algae kind of thing. So everything's kind of all interconnected there. But there are different reasons for it. But basically, again, unpleasant odors tracks from the visual appeal of the water body as well, and it's an indication that there's high nutrients in the water as well. String algae, also known as filamentous algae or pond algae, are a type of algae that form long thread-like strands in mats of bodies of water. This algae can attach to surfaces such as rocks, plants, and substrates. So this kind of looks like a weed almost that grows and creates long hair or strings kind of thing. So same kind of issues that are associated with that, with water quality, odors, and indication, but it also can disrupt the water flow, altering the habitats. It smothers aquatic plants that you might want in there. And they are just unsightly again, kind of thing. And then we have cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae, which is actually not an algae, but it's a type of bacteria, which acts very similar to algae. It's actually photosynthetic, and is found in diverse aquatic environments. So you can find lots of different types of blue-green algae all over the place, but the main issue with blue-green algae, along with all the same similar issues with algae such as water quality, excessive nutrients, there's an indication that there's a problem there. It's creating odors, that sort of thing. But the main concern with cyanobacteria is it produces harmful toxins known as cyanotoxins that if you consume that, or your pets consume that, wildlife consume that, it can be fatal. So not to scare anyone, but you might see that posted at a beach or kind of like next to a retention pond in a city or town there, and it says there's the cyanobacteria blooms. Don't let your pets drink the water. Don't yourselves drink the water, kind of thing. And that's why, is because the cyanotoxins can be fatal. Even livestock owners, there's been cases of full grown cows that are 1,000+ pounds that they drink the water that's has enough cyanotoxins that build up, and it's a neurotoxin, so it eventually can be fatal. But particularly with pets and small children is a big concern. So if you see the signs, or if you have those concerns that you do have cyanobacteria, definitely get the water tested, let us know, and we will do whatever we can to make sure that we're maintaining that. Generally, it can look blue, but also it can look like a very green, almost pea soup like consistency in the water. So generally, if you take pictures, we can have a good idea if there's cyanobacteria just by looking at it. But the best way is to send us a water sample, and then we would be able to test for that as well. So this is more particular if you're going to be swimming from your pond, but something to keep in mind if for your water garden as well, if you have pets that might be drinking from it. Then we have swimmer's itch. So swimmer's itch is a skin condition caused by parasites in contaminated water. The parasites, known as cystosomes, released by infected snails, penetrate the skin while swimming. So essentially what happens is a duck will land on the pond. It releases the eggs through its fecal matter. Those eggs then are looking for that host, that intermediate host species, which is the snail. They enter in the snail, then those parasites will grow in the snail and eventually be released, and they're looking for a duck to start that cycle over again. What happens is, if it comes in contact with human skin, it tries to burrow into our skin and is unable to do so, and it leaves this nasty rash, which itches and things like that. So basically recognizing and avoiding contaminated water sources can help prevent swimmer's itch. But if there's an abundance of snails that you have in your pond, then there's a good chance that you might have the parasites for swimmer's itch in the water body as well. So uh, there are ways that you can eliminate those snails and things like that. So keeping that in mind. As well as then we have water chemistry. So just in general, ammonias, nitrates, phosphorus, those are the building blocks that cause aquatic or algae. So those are the main nutrients that we are looking at and provide solutions for reducing to bring balance to the pond. As well as there's factors such as your turbidity, total suspended solids, pH, monochloramine. There's all kinds of different testing that we can do that concerned with the water chemistry of the pond, just to maintain balance. Because if one parameter, if you have very high phosphorus, that typically leads to algae blooms, which is caused by eutrophication or the excess nutrients in the freshwater body. So best practices when building or maintaining a water garden. So this is where we're going to get into the more construction side of things or the maintenance if you have an existing water garden here. So size. So what determines the appropriate size? If you're having fish or no fish, and how many fish you want to have in that pond. The rule of thumb is 1 inch of fish per every 10 gallons of water. So like I mentioned before, if you had like a 300-gallon pond with 70 fish, but those 70 fish are 3 to 5 inches, let's say they're goldfish, you have too many fish in the pond, and that's what's going to cause that unbalance of too much waste and things like that. As well as if you're going to incorporate a waterfall or stream, all of a sudden the scale and that footprint that your water garden is going to have is going to be substantially increased, because you can do a small stream, but it's still going to add into that space. So making sure that it fits within the landscape is kind of the biggest consideration there, is if you're in that kind of building side of things. As well as depth. Deeper the water is more efficient at aerating, and aerating is one of our top tier solutions for maintaining a healthy water body. It's also better for the fish as it can stay a bit cooler. Overwintering fish is also easier in a deeper pond. So rather than draining your pond and scooping your fish out to bring them inside your garage or in your house, that sort of thing, which there's an associated cost of on the water bill and that sort of things. If you have a deep enough pond, you can add a pond heater, aeration sort of thing to keep the water open all winter long, and the fish will do perfectly fine. Yeah, and deeper ponds are easier to maintain as well. So a lot of these water quality issues, if the deeper the pond, it's just a little bit easier rather than too shallow kind of thing. Then we have skimmers. So if you are able to incorporate a skimmer and if later a filtration system into the pond, it pulls debris into a basket, allowing it to settle in the basket rather than on the bottom. And it just adds another additional layer of filtration. So small water gardens, we always like to encourage people to incorporate a skimmer, just because it's going to help alleviate a lot of those water quality issues. Then we have filtration. So filtration can make or break the success of a pond, especially when fish are present, because it's going to be allowing for space for bacteria growth and help strain out the water. So bacteria will grow on the filter media, the bio balls and that other kind of filter media. It's going to help kind of reduce some of those particles that might be free floating in the pond. Especially in these smaller water garden situations, we want to have adequate filtration because it will make your lives much easier to have that additional kind of defense mechanism at play. So to rock or not, ponds with rock bottom perform but they perform well. They perform quite well actually, compared to like a clay line or mud bottom type pond. The rock and gravel provides additional square footage for bacteria to grow and thrive on, and those bacteria are they're part of your natural defenses of reducing nutrient inputs and muck and that sort of thing. As well as it lightens the color of the pond and doesn't absorb as much heat. So if you've ever been to a gravel pit, that sort of thing, that's normally crystal clear water you can see really far down. Versus if you're in like a prairie pothole dugout or retention pond that's dug right into the soil and lined with clay, that dark surface is going to heat up much faster, which causes algae growth because they like warm water, as well as you're not going to be able to see quite as far down in the water as compared to with mud bottom there. Then we have pond plants, so they soften the look of the pond. They provide biodiversity. If done right, they can also help pull nutrients from the pond. So they kind of go to work for you. That's another natural, easy defense that you can put them in. On the same side of things, they can also put excess nutrients back as the pond plants die, then nutrients are being released back into the water. What we always recommend for if you're adding pond plants is to, if you buy them from the store or whatnot and they're in a little pot, is to shake all that dirt and debris off them and bare root them right into the pond, and then they'll do much better rather than planting them in that same filter or that media that you might purchase them in. Then we have water treatment. So this is what you can do to your pond to maintain it. So there's a lot of things that we can hopefully rely on for the natural defenses, but the reality is that there is a little bit of maintenance that we ourselves have to do to maintain a healthy water system. So first off is aeration. Aeration is our number one defense. So if you even in ponds that have water circulation, we like to put in small aerator systems just because that just helps increase the dissolved oxygen, which will make sense in the next couple slides here. So by aerating a water body, so non-aerated water bodies, they tend to be smelly because they have trapped gases in them. You have your associated algae blooms, your natural defenses, like your aerobic bacterias and invertebrates are not going to be working as efficiently or not present. And it's going to be anaerobic bacteria, which is very slow decomposing decomposers for the water system. So they will be removing nutrients, but they're not very good at it, and it creates those kind of stagnant smelly conditions which lead to algae blooms and things like that. Whereas well aerated water, so water that has a lot of dissolved oxygen in it, that's feeding into the bacterias, your aerobic bacterias that require oxygen, your invertebrates that thrive and perform much better on oxygen, and encouraging more invertebrates, like your pollution intolerant species, so species that don't do well in polluted environments to come to the pond, and then those natural defenses will inevitably increase the overall performance of the pond. So there's two types of aeration or subtypes of aeration that we've broken it down into, which is through floating fountains and subsurface aeration. So subsurface aeration, there's additional two categories. There's coarse bubble and fine bubble. Coarse bubbles are large bubbles breaking at the surface. Fine bubbles is millions of micro bubbles breaking at the surface. Fine bubble aeration is regarded as many times more efficient at aerating compared to a coarse bubble system. So the basic science behind that is if you're pumping a air bubble in and it's creating a single bubble, you're not having oxygen transferred as much right at that moment. It's when that bubble hits the surface of the water, it creates a disturbance, which allows oxygen molecules to mix into the water. So having one big lug of every so often hitting the surface, yes, it looks like it's adding a lot of of aeration, but it's not disturbing the water as much compared to millions of tiny bubbles that are able to diffuse and incorporate themselves into the water. So if you're looking for that added benefit, uh, subser with subsurface aeration, micro bubbles are by far more superior. There's lots of studies that have been done on this, as well as subsurface aerators. They require less maintenance requirements. There's a couple filters that you have to change, and every couple of years, usually a maintenance kit. That's at least in our aerators. There's other aerators out there that they're more costly and things like that to maintain. If you're using like a really large couple horsepower motor kind of thing, but that's definitely overkill for a water garden. And as well as it is crucial for if you're trying to overwinter koi or anything in your water garden, you need to have aeration because that oxygen will deplete over time, and you need to keep that water open for them. So making sure that they have plenty of oxygen so that they can survive the winter. And then we have fountains. So fountains are aesthetically pleasing in water gardens. They can be equipped with lighting and come with a variety of sizes and styles. They are efficient at aerating the top few feet of water, and they're also one of the subsurface and fountains are how we would combat duckweed, because duckweed doesn't like moving water. So a fountain has a larger footprint, depending on the size of the pond. So your water is going to be throwing and creating lots of movement on the surface. But they do have increased maintenance challenges such as clogging and removal, as well as they're much more costly to run because pushing water compared to air is just kind of comparing. Moving the water is going to cost a lot more because it uses that much more energy. But floating fountains aren't as efficient at creating aeration throughout the entire water body as compared to subsurface, which kind of be able to explain a bit better with this graphic here. So a floating fountain will will spew out water up to the surface and then create a bit of a conveyor belt, but it's only pushing and sucking water from as far down as if it's like 3 or 4 feet beneath the surface, it's pulling water from 3 or 4 feet. It's not pulling up from the bottom. Whereas a subsurface aerator will sit right on the bottom and it pulls water right from the bottom of the pond, creating a larger conveyor belt. So if you can kind of see the difference there, the fountain's going to be aerating that top layer of water, but you're not aerating the bottom. So by aerating the bottom, you are having mixing of dissolved oxygen throughout the entire water body, and having that entire system well oxygenated will have all those natural defenses at kind of going to bat for you. Then we have additives. So additives are our next line of defense that and they pair very, very well with aeration, and that's in the form of beneficial bacteria. So beneficial bacteria are naturally occurring bacteria in ponds, lakes, and rivers. So they already are in the environment, just like how we have natural beneficial bacteria in our own bodies that are playing different roles. There's anaerobic and aerobic bacteria, which they both do play a role, but aerobic bacteria means that it uses oxygen to function, and they're much more efficient and faster at decomposing and removing nutrients from the water compared to anaerobic. So bacteria, they act as a decomposer for nutrients and organics, limiting algae growth. So it's one of those tools that we use to reduce algae as well as reducing nutrients for aquatic weeds. So that's just creating balance for the pond. Introducing bacteria is key for boosting the immune system of the pond and maintain water quality. So if you have a pond that's kind of freshly starting to introduce bacteria to the pond, we're able to put in enough to have those issues alleviated, but over time, as you build up an immune system, you're able to scale back how much that you're actually putting in, because you're actually building that immunity in the water. So that's why we like to see water gardens, if possible. If you leave that water in the pond, then it's going to perform a lot better the next year because you're already building up those defenses. If you are draining your water garden every single year, then you are going to have to restart by adding bacteria, and you might have to use a little bit more just to kind of keep that bacteria level high where it's knocking out the algae. Then we have phosphate binders and enzymes. So naturally occurring enzymes are what boost the productivity of bacteria and increase the efficiency. So it's essentially like giving the bacteria Red Bull. But they're often paired with phosphate binders, which is a key ingredient that causes algae bloom. So phosphate is one of those building blocks for algae. And by reducing the phosphate as along with ammonias and nitrates in the pond is how we can bring balance back to the pond. Phosphate binders, they bind to the free floating phosphorus in the water column, making it insoluble for growing algae, causing them that now bond phosphate to sink to the bottoms, and that's where it kind of sits. So it's basically reducing the phosphorus being available for uptake with the algae kind of thing. Then we have pond dyes. So pond dyes are additives that change the aesthetic look of the pond and limit weed growth. They act as a UV shield, similar to like sunglasses, so light doesn't penetrate as deep to the growing and aquatic weeds. You can get them in an array of different colors, and they are all food, typically all food grade safe, but they're not as effective in shallow ponds. So unless you're building a water garden that's 5-6 feet deep in the center kind of thing, and you don't want weeds to be growing there. If they're like 2 or 3 feet, the sun's pretty powerful, and they're going to win that battle where they're still able to get through the pond. So that's not going to have as much of an effect on eliminating those weeds. And same with other sort of ponds that shallow water. It's just not going to. You could darken the pond so much that the sun can't get through, but then it takes away the aesthetic feel. But essentially pond dye, it looks good. It pairs well. This is a local pond that yeah, if you like the look of it. Some people don't choose to go with it, but a lot of people do like the look of the pond dye. And you can get some crazy colors too to kind of change that look as well. And then finally, just a note on meeting the needs of fish. So if you are going to be putting fish in your ponds, there just a couple things to keep in mind. Dissolved oxygen is crucial for fish, so having a small aerator is always recommended. That's going to help increase the dissolved oxygen, increase the success rate of the survivability of your fish. Because they're going to be using up a lot of oxygen, and other organic and living things in the pond will use up oxygen. So by incorporating an aerator, having water circulation, that sort of thing, maintains there's an always constant input of well mixing dissolved oxygen into the pond. Then there's also dechlorination and cycling of the water before introducing the fish. It's highly recommended to reduce stress and mortality. So if you fill up your pond with the garden hose and you put your fish right in, that water has chlorine in it. So we want to make sure that we remove that chlorine by using a dechlorinator. Simply put, that's toxic. Chlorine is toxic to fish, and you'll end up killing your fish by doing that, as well as cycling of water. So if you have a fresh pond that you fill the hose from the tap there, it doesn't have the bacteria. It doesn't have things haven't been balanced out yet. So we recommend cycling the water. So give it a couple weeks, have that circulation going, incorporate your aeration, add your bacteria, add your enzymes to the water, just to kind of get things established, and then introduce your fish, and they'll be much happier for it. Fish do require occasional treatments for parasites and diseases. There's just additives that you can put in the water. It's usually in a powder form, or you might have to remove your fish and quarantine them if they're sick and try and nurse them back to health that way. If you are going to overwinter your fish, getting a pond heater, as well as aeration. Aeration is 100% crucial because the oxygen will deplete over time in the winter. As well as the aeration will help keep open water for them as well to allow that mixing of oxygen. And if your pond is not deep enough, you might need a heater as well, just to kind of keep that water open, because otherwise you're not going to have any oxygen, and that's how we get fish kills. And we even see fish kills on lakes too, that sort of thing. That's one of the things that we do as a company is provide aeration for preventing fish kills for large scale lakes, that sort of thing, because ice that's locked up, that pond, that lake can use up its oxygen source really quick. And if there's not any sort of new inputs going into the lake, then that's when we get winter kill. As well as food side of things, using a high quality food in the summer, switching to wheat germ in the kind of cooler shoulder seasons. In the middle of winter, you don't need to feed your fish. They go into a dormancy state. That's for koi, that is. And then following a rule of thumb, making sure 1 inch per 10 gallons. And then also keeping in mind how deep your pond is. If it's 2 or 3 feet, then I wouldn't be trying to. 3 feet you could get away with overwintering fish in the pond. 2 feet, depending on where you are in the country, you might not have as much success overwintering your fish in the pond, because if at least in Manitoba we get a couple of feet of ice, no problem here. So even with aeration, you might have the water freeze right to the bottom, and then it's all for naught, kind of thing. As well as introducing rock and artificial caves for the fish to hide in, which helps protect them from predators. We've had lots of calls where it's a bit of a tragic situation where a herring or a raccoon or something gets in and it swipes all your fish out of the pond, and then you're starting from square one, kind of thing. We've even had pictures of people sent in where it's their koi and it has like claw marks on the side of them, and it's quite sad, especially because if you've raised them from little tiny babies all the way to 10 to 12 foot long fish, that it takes some time and a lot of effort to do so. So we definitely care about that.